Welcome to Back to Basics, a podcast where we return to the wisdom that has been with us from the very beginning. In a culture that's drifting further from the truth, we're finding our footing again in faith, family, and the timeless ideals that lead to true physical, spiritual, and emotional health. Join us weekly as we explore candid conversations with leading health industry experts, thought leaders, and healers as we get back to the basic values that make for a healthier world. I'm Anna Montanaro, your host, and you're listening to Back to Basics. All right, we are good to go. Alexandra, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited to talk to you. I think my audience is going to get so much from your wisdom around planning for pregnancy and getting your body ready for pregnancy. So give the audience a little intro to you. You went to MIT and then you had this realization that, your purpose was to be a mother and to be a wife. So let's talk through all of that. I want to hear everything.
So, it's like MIT to holistic nutritionist. What? Usually people are like, what?
Yep.
But I like to joke that, necessity gives birth to innovation, right? So
Amen.
When I went to MIT, my goal was one of the reasons I really wanted to go there is that, I thought MIT was the place where you would learn how to solve the world's big problems. I really was really sold out on the spirit of MIT, and we're here to make the world a better place. And let's go make the world a bit more like MIT. And as life would have it, I became a mom really soon after leaving MIT. And my experience with my first pregnancy really left me feeling like there's a lot of space for innovation here.
Yeah.
In the sense of, I really wanted to, obviously, as all moms do, I wanted to give my child the best possible start in life. I wanted, to have the healthiest pregnancy. I wanted him to have the natural birth and the breastfeeding and the attachment parenting so he could develop well and, have secure relationships through the rest of his life and do well in school and make friends, all the things that we want for our kids.
Totally.
What happened is I thought I was doing all the right things. I read a bunch of books. I found good midwives. I thought I had done what you're supposed to do. I was eating organic. I was eating clean. And yet my body was shutting down on me. And so, and what it led to, and the narrative I kept getting told was that these are normal pregnancy side effects. And
give an example. Are we talking morning sickness? Are we talking exhaustion? What do you mean?
So for me specifically, it was severe back and pelvic pain. So the kind of pain where you're just, there would be evenings I would just be on my hands and knees, because that was the only thing that was the only position that would relieve the pain a little bit. And I would just be there crying. And, and what I didn't realize in my mind, I'm you're pregnant. When you're pregnant, you have back pain. That's normal. Or the other thing that happened to me, which this is less common or less normal, but I had, cholestasis of pregnancy, which was basically my digestive system shut down. So my bile stopped flowing. I couldn't digest any fat. So every time I ate anything that had fat, I would have 2 to 4 hours of gallbladder attacks. And if you've ever had those, they're really, really painful.
Gnarly. Yeah.
And again, it was one of those things. It was I'm suffering. This isn't I'm uncomfortable. I was actively suffering. And the message that I got was what do you expect? You're pregnant. And so, and that was something, as a Christian woman, as someone who believes that I was created by a perfect and loving God and, created to be fruitful and to bring new life into the world, I'm this doesn't make sense to me. This isn't how my body was meant to be. And I'm imagining the comments of people, but what about the fall and Eve's curse? I'm no, this is not what it's about.
No.
The reality is that this assumption that pregnancy is meant to be painful, I actually knew that that wasn't true. And that wasn't like when we get closer to God's design and how God wanted humanity to live, like that's when you see, hey, actually, that's not how people were operating. And the way I came to that is I started studying just out of interest, like traditional people groups. And a lot of it, I found the work of Weston A. Price, and I got really interested in like, what does pregnancy look like for other people? And they were not in severe pain. Like they're actually, no, pregnancy is really great. And so for me to kind of bring it back full circle, it was like, okay, I know that this is possible. And I really did the best that I could with the tools that were available for me to create it for my life, because I really wanted to be a mom. I really wanted to enjoy it. I really wanted to be energized and enthusiastic and have so much to give to my child. But I used the tools that were available to me and it wasn't working. It just wasn't working. And so that kind of set me on the journey of what am I missing? Like why, like how can we engineer a better solution to this problem? And that's where the MIT background really did come in handy.
Yes. So, okay, there's so much to discuss here because I think about this a lot, especially in the context of pregnancy and for fertility and all of the things in this realm of like God's command to us around fertility is very specific, right? It's be fruitful and multiply. And he wouldn't give us that commandment if it was supposed to be an experience where we were, like you said, suffering and having the worst 9 months of our lives, right? Why would we sign up to do that over and over and over again and be fruitful and multiply if that's how we were, quote unquote, designed to experience pregnancy? So I agree with you 100%, but I just have to ask, you're at MIT. Was there no part of you that was like in like a girl boss mentality, or were you like eyes on the prize? I'm going to graduate MIT and I'm going to become a mother.
Okay. So, why not both?
Right.
Why not both? Why is it either or?
Amen.
Oh, because I've been girl bossing since day one, you know?
Yeah. I love it.
I think what I would say is that, and this is a big thing I think my clients love about working with me and just my approach specifically, is how do you balance that like high achieving, driven, kind of personality, lots of grit with the like flowy, feminine, holistic, like spiritual,
Yeah.
how do you blend these two worlds? Because the reality is there's a lot of us have both. And I think that was true of me is I have both. I have a lot of where I, want to surrender and trust God and be in my feminine and, do silly, crazy things or go to the beach and feel the wind in my face and all of those things. And I have the version of me that loves a challenge and loves to get hard things done and loves to really like live a big and powerful life. And so it's about how do you bring those two things together? And what I would say to your listeners is what I see as being one of the biggest challenges for women entering motherhood, especially, either high achieving or successful or just, most modern women is like, how do you blend those two things? Because most of us were really taught that more masculine model of work hard, study, achieve, pursue. And there is going to be a disconnect if you apply that, directly to motherhood. And so a lot of my approach is helping you understand, okay, how can you be both? Because the reality is people love talking about the masculine and feminine and like being in your feminine, but you can have too much of both. Being
Absolutely.
There's the joke, it's like you'll just blow away. And this is something, I didn't run into this at MIT, but since being in the wellness space, and I say this with so much, it's been like, usually it's not American women. Like you meet I'm thinking of one woman I met at a conference from Portugal, and I'm just like, I have never seen someone so in her feminine. And she's a very successful business owner. She has a family of her own. It's just like, you don't run into that in America. It's just a cultural difference. But I'm like, she's leaving. She's in tears. She's like, I have to catch the ferry and get to my plane, and I only have 2 hours, but I've just had so many breakthroughs, and I'm so high on life, and it's beautiful to see.
Yes.
It's like, okay, that's feminine in the extreme. And most of us can't live and operate there. Like, we will fly away. Okay. Yeah. And then there's the opposite of, a lot of what I was conditioned to be, or what I see a lot of women, where we're fully running from our masculine, fully on this 20-hour clock, fully, completely disconnected to our hormonal cycle and our natural rhythms and all of these things. And that doesn't work either. So I think a lot of us, generally, it's balance. Like, everything in life is about balance. And for most women, what I want to help them with is see, okay, how do we bring those two things together?
Yes. And I think it's interesting that, the way the baby gets in with those things coming together, right? With that balance of the feminine and masculine is, like you're saying, it's the way that you have to move through the experience of pregnancy and birth, right? It's not like you're like disciplining yourself through it, right? Or like white knuckling through it. It's like, how can we kind of float like a butterfly, sting like a bee a little bit, where it's like the perfect mixture of effort and ease. So, okay, you get through your first pregnancy. Was your birth difficult as a result of all of that sort of turmoil during the pregnancy?
So I think, and here's the thing as well, when I talk like why I value, preconception preparation and really prioritizing, like, how do we have a healthy, well-nourished, well-balanced mother through pregnancy, is because when you don't have that, you're not going to have a healthy baby, and you're not going to have a healthy birth. Right. And so, the reality is, right, like, birth works, but the reason birth doesn't work is either it's interfered with, or mom and baby aren't healthy. Yeah. And I think what a lot of women focus on is, birth is being interfered with, and that's the cause of all of these problems. And I think what I've observed as someone who has been in the natural birth center, home birth space, is not enough attention is being given to, okay, no, what about the large number of cases where mom and baby simply aren't healthy? Yep. And then they're choosing that, and they're not being given support. Midwives don't want to, they're either not, it's just there's so much fear of a more supervised or more medicalized environment that we're ignoring obvious red flags. That's something that there might be risks, and it might not be a good idea, or mom might need a little bit more help or care. And so again, it's that balance. And we really have to be mindful and humble and honest and willing to look ourselves in the mirror and be like, okay, yeah, I've been eating organic for the past 9 months, but I also binge drank from 16 to 18. Yeah. And that doesn't just disappear. Or, what did you grow up eating? Or what other stressors were you exposed to? Or, how many hours did you spend sitting at a desk studying? And these are all like, those things actually really do matter. Or, what time of the night are you getting sleep? When was the last time you saw the sunrise? And these are all things that actually really do matter, and will impact your ability and capacity to carry and give birth. And so with my first birth, I saw what can happen when mom and baby aren't healthy, which looked like, having my son taken away from me because he wasn't breathing by paramedics shortly after he was born, and not getting reunited for 2 hours, and, seeing him struggle with some learning differences, as he gets to the school age years. And so that is the reality that we're facing, and so we don't need to approach this from fear. But when I'm working with women, I'm like, hey, what you're setting out to do is a big responsibility. It's a big calling, and it looks really fun. And the baby onesies and the tiny socks, they're so cute. And I know you love your husband so much, and it's so easy to just be like, oh, it's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
But it's worth going through this process it's really important to do your due diligence. And what I see is that most women aren't being given good support and aren't being really educated on what does that look like, and it needs to start long before you see a positive test, because the reality is the stage for the health of your pregnancy has already been set. Like you're really far into the game by the time you see a positive test.
Wow. So how long should women be preparing their bodies for pregnancy?
I think 6 months, 3 months is the absolute minimum. 6
Yeah.
months is a really nice sweet spot. Most women need 12.
Yeah.
So because the reality is it's 6 months of like doing the work, but also lives. And so 6 months being the sweet spot for a lot of women looks like 12. And so that's really what I see. I mean, the Weston A. Price Foundation is like 2 years out.
I know. Wild.
And so I try to help my ladies. Like, it's like, okay, we can work a little bit faster than that. We can be really strategic.
Yeah.
But I have some ladies that have been, because I have clients that aren't, they're not even in their life partnership yet, and they're pregnancy prepping because they want to be ready. And so they've been prepping for years, and loving every part of it, because every single part of their life has gotten better, because a pregnancy prepared woman is just a healthy woman.
Yeah.
And it's a much better version of life to live than a non-pregnancy prepared body, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. So when we talk about preparation, my mind goes to nutrient-dense diet, moving your body, right? But like also not overextending yourself in that regard, getting consistent sleep. What are the things, like the tangible things that you tell women straight off the bat, okay, these are the things that you need to potentially cut out, and these are the things that you need to add in?
Yes. And so I love that question, because there is both. There's things we want to cut out, and then the things we want to add in. And what I would say is, just generally for anyone listening, like my goal when it comes to health is like, we are never, no white knuckling allowed, basically.
Amen.
It's building a baby ready lifestyle. Like, this isn't a 6-week fad diet or crash diet. Like, this is you need to build a long-term sustainable lifestyle, because you don't just need to be baby ready. You need to be pregnant for 9 months and then recover postpartum. And then probably most of us, breastfeed at least a year is what most of my clients are wanting. And so we're talking about, and you need to be well-nourished, well-rested, well-supported through that entire process to really, give your baby what they deserve and be the kind of mother that you want to be. And so we really have to be strategic of like, okay, how can we build something that you can, that is really potent and really powerful, and that can be sustained for that length of time, especially with, transitions and new seasons and a new baby, and you're figuring out so many things. And so this is something I call the leverage effect. So it's really focusing on not what are all the things that I could possibly do, but what are the lowest effort, highest impact changes that I can make and that I can sustain. Because the reality is, the simplest things that you do over 1, 2, 3 years of your life are going to be much more beneficial than the, most trendy, complex 20-step like health routine you could possibly implement that you only keep up with for 5 days. And so that's what I'm really thinking about. So what do those things look like? Some of my favorites are things like hydration, understanding how to drink clean water, how to drink mineralized water, how to actually, get the water into the cells where it needs to go. Circadian rhythm is huge. So how to actually balance your body clock so you get deep, restful sleep at night, because that's going to give you more benefit than any supplement ever could. And also, like, that's the missing link for hormonal balance. And then obviously, nutrient dense diet. So bringing in, animal foods, things like egg yolks I love, red meat from, quality beef sources, sometimes dairy if it's the right thing for you. Beans, I love beans, like actually making sure we're getting fiber. Because
Yeah.
most of our ancestral people, like ancestral diet people, it's like all fat and protein and no fiber.
Yeah.
So, and there's, some seafood and there's obviously, we could talk a lot about diet, but that's what we're thinking about. How can we bring in more nutrients in? And then, what are things we want to leave out? And usually my focus is like, okay, when you're spending the time bringing all these things in, then you just don't have space for the things we want to leave out. But, seed oils are a big one because they mess up your blood sugar regulation. They're really bad for our bile flow. And that's like, I could talk all day about bile flow, but that, I was blessed with, that was my main problem during my first pregnancy, but that also is like the root cause solution for so many things like morning sickness. And I mean, just so many things when it comes to the health of a pregnancy. And then really my last biggest toxin, that thankfully people are talking about more, but wasn't being talked about at all, especially 8 years ago when I was pregnant for the first time, is blue light when it's dark outside. So like,
oh my gosh, mic drop. We have to go into this because this is my kryptonite because I am working and I'm editing things and I'm, this with my phone and my husband's like, I don't know if that's going to help you sleep. I'm like, stop, but say more.
Okay. I was going to do it. It's like, it's this thing you say more about so you can say less. Because if we're worried about cortisol, like I just want you to think that blue light equals cortisol. Blue light equals cortisol. Like people talk about the cortisol, all these things about cortisol. And we all know how bad stress is for fertility and how bad stress is for your baby when you're pregnant and all those things. But our hormones are actually driven by the sun. If we want to look at things like really simplistically, because your cortisol and melatonin production directly respond to, okay, when the sun comes up, cortisol goes up because we need cortisol to go up to wake up and have energy to get out of bed and go do stuff. Like we don't want no cortisol. That's not good. That you're not going to do anything, right? We need a little bit. We just need it at the right time. So ideally we want that in the morning. And then we need darkness to produce melatonin. Now there's the other aspect of this, which is subcellular melatonin, which I love. It's my bestie, but certain spectrums of light, which is that near infrared early morning light, actually, when you get that into your eyes and on your skin, it triggers inside every single one of your cells. It's triggered to produce, it's called subcellular melatonin, which is basically like, your body can make for free a really powerful antioxidant inside every single one of its cells every single day. An antioxidant you'd have to eat, it's like 2,500 Brazil nuts. Wow. Or it's like, you'd have to eat so much food or take so many supplements to mimic this. And you can get it for free every single day, every morning, just by getting the right spectrum of light in your eyes and on your body. A leading cancer specialist from the UK, he writes on the subcellular melatonin because it's actually a newer, they've only understood this for the past few years, this mechanism. But he says it the average American has a 1 in 2 cancer risk. And this subcellular melatonin, if you actually get this exposure, it potentially could reduce that risk from 1 in 2 to 1 in 10.
Whoa.
And that's the kind of information that makes me stop.
Me too.
And really consider active habit change. So, but to bring it back, I kind of went in a few different directions there.
No, I love it.
Excited. Because this really was life-changing for me. Because let me just get back to my first pregnancy. Here I am. I want you to I'm going to paint the scene for you. 41 weeks and 5 days pregnant after a very long and challenging pregnancy. I'm so worried about I'm just dying, depressed, so ready to go into labor, or not wanting to get induced, not knowing what to do, feeling so sad. And I'm at IKEA and it's 10:30 at night under the super, super
fluorescent lights. Yep.
We were also renovating our condo at the time, and we were like trying to finish up this one last project before baby got here. And so why do I share that story is I really wish that version of me, I have so much compassion for her because she was hurting. It was a really hard time. And I really wish she just would have known that, like, hey, being under these bright lights after dark actually is bad for you and actually makes you less likely to go into labor on time. Because she had no idea. Like, if I had known the evidence, I would have acted differently. If I had seen the mice studies that they had done where they keep female mice under light all the time and those mice never go into labor spontaneously, I would have made different choices because I could have. And so this is why I'm so passionate about sharing the Baby Ready Body Method with women. It's because it's actually quite easy to implement. Like, once you know these leverage points, it's really easy to make those changes. I have to be like, most people, they're like, oh, it's hard to change your health. Like, these are actually things that are quite easy to implement.
Yeah.
And they really can change your life, and they can change the trajectory of your fertility, the trajectory of your pregnancy, like your entire future.
Yes.
On, okay, when am I getting light? So to answer your question, okay, you're like, okay, Alexandra, I hear it.
No. Yeah.
I'm here every night in front of my phone.
Yeah.
Why is that? Like, you're saying it's easy. And so there's two things we look at in the Baby Ready Body Method. We do need to get that morning light. If you don't get light in the morning, your body won't produce melatonin later. So there's two sides of the coin. You have to give your body the light in the morning, and then you have to reduce or block or eliminate the blue light after dark. If those two things are in place, and there's a little bit about tryptophan and some amino acids, we could get a bit, but basically, if those two things are in place, it helps if you eat a bit of protein in the morning with some tryptophan. Then your body will produce melatonin. If your body is producing melatonin and it's not suppressed, you will be too tired to scroll your phone.
Honestly, makes sense. I mean, I'm going to try it tonight because the thing about light, and I've never heard this talked about in relation to health, but it's so interesting, is like a huge form of torture is they just put people in rooms locked up with fluorescent lights on for days and days and days. And it makes people go insane, literally. It's like, so we're all sitting here in our houses at night with our terrible LED light bulbs. You know, everything's lit up. My husband comes in and turns on every ceiling light in the house. I'm like, it's candlelight only at this hour. He's like, it's 4 p.m. But like, you get what I'm saying? Where it's like, we don't think about it, but you're so right. And so when it comes to early morning sunlight, do you mean like, is the best way to do it waking up with the sun, getting the sunlight in your eyes? Can you do it through a window, or are we going outside and like no hat on, just like give me the sun, you know?
If anyone follows me, they've all seen me brushing my teeth in my backyard.
Yep.
So you got to find the idea. Here's the reality. What we have to understand, if we think about it, it's like, okay, God designed pregnancy to be like, he wants me to be fruitful and multiply and it's supposed to be good. God also designed you to live outside under the sun.
Amen.
So like, we can't, and every time we try to shortcut that or get away from that or be more productive than that so we can make more money or be more efficient, right? Like, that's when problems happen.
Yeah.
And we have to just acknowledge this. And it's like, okay, there's some benefits to living a modern life and I'm willing to accept those, but we have to understand there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? Like, nothing comes for free in life. So there's always a trade-off. When we get one benefit, we're losing out. When we're, take a shortcut to get to here, we're losing out on something here. And what I would say is for most modern, like all of us, we've gotten the benefit of increased productivity from artificial light, which I'm not claiming like I want to get rid of that. But a big downside is the impact that has had on our circadian rhythm, because we no longer live and operate how we were designed to, which is our body's systems are governed by the light of the sun. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Like, the patterns of light and dark drive your hormones. So if you're worried about hormone health, Yes, what you eat matters. Yes, there's supplements you can take and this and that you can do, but the sun is really important. And so what is ideal is to be in darkness when it's dark and to be outside in the sun when the sun is out. That is what creates an optimally functioning human. Now, what we have to do then is to say, okay, here's my lifestyle. Here's the things I like about my lifestyle. Here's the things I'm not willing to give up to, from the lifestyle I'm living right now, or based on, whatever challenges I've run into from living that lifestyle. But how can I, in this lifestyle I'm currently living, with the job I work and all of that, how can I get as close as possible to that? And what's going to be the times a day that are going to give me the most benefit, right? The most leverage from getting outside. So to answer your question, the answer that no one likes to hear is we want to be outside with the sunrise, as close to the sunrise as possible. Then we get into, okay, if that's not happening, it's better to be in front of a window from inside your house than, have the blackout shades on and still under your covers.
Yep.
It's better to be by an open window than a closed window that's blocking some of the spectrums of light. And it's even better to be all the way outside. Now, if it's a cloudy day, you still get that near infrared light. It just takes longer. So no one really wants to. That's why I live in Phoenix, because we don't have too many of those. But you still can get the benefits. Typically on a cloudy day, we need to spend a bit more time outside. So there's the minutia there, but I think we really have to, we can't, and this sounds funny coming from an engineer, someone who likes innovation and all of those things, but there are things that we can't outsmart or out-innovate, and so it's, what really, when I think about this innovation, it's understanding, okay, how can I help, or how can we bring a modern woman as getting the most benefits from things like circadian rhythm, from things like just the natural tools that are around us as possible. So yeah, that's what I would say. To answer your question, yes, we want to be outside as early as possible, as close to sunrise as possible, for as long as possible. What I personally do in my life that I live is I wake up. It changes with the seasons too, because the sun doesn't rise at the same time every day. So you have to be flexible. But brushing my teeth outside, that's a habit stack that has served me
I love it.
so well. And you know what? Looking at wherever you're at, the sunrise, it's always beautiful. I happen to have some mountains behind me, so that helps. But
lucky you.
It is so much better than looking at your face first thing in the morning, which is beautiful, but maybe not your favorite time to look at your face under those bright fluorescent lights in your bathroom.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. We're going to take a hard left turn, but we have to talk about morning sickness. I know you mentioned BioFlow earlier. Morning sickness is common, right? But is it normal?
So,
not to make anyone mad.
So, and I say this, morning sickness is not necessary to have a pregnancy and to have a baby. So I think that's a more helpful way to frame it, is that it is both common and a normal coping mechanism to the circumstances that most women's bodies are trying to create a pregnancy under, but it's not necessary to have a baby, right? It's not it's not a requirement for pregnancy. And so the question is then, okay, well then why do some women experience morning sickness and others don't? And why is it more severe in some women than in other women? And what it comes down to is a hormone metabolism and elimination process. And you have to understand there's a few systems in the body that are involved. And if there's a backlog or sluggishness or a lack of efficiency in any of those systems, then you're going to get those symptoms of morning sickness. And so to kind of help you understand, right, when we go through a pregnancy, they blame pregnancy hormones for morning sickness, but two women can have the same level of pregnancy, they're not quote, they are pregnancy hormones.
Yeah.
One can have morning sickness and one can be totally like asymptomatic
Normal.
or not having the same symptoms, and why is that? It's because one woman's body is able to metabolize and eliminate those excess levels of pregnancy hormones that are necessary to the hormones are necessary to grow and develop the baby.
Yep.
What's not necessary is a body who's not supported in its capacity to break down and eliminate those hormones. And so this brings us back to things like the phases of liver detox, to bile flow. There's other things like histamine that get involved.
Yeah.
But really what I see in my practice to just help you understand, okay, why would baby hormones make me not want to eat protein? Like it looks like the worst possible thing ever. When also I know, but I really need protein to like balance my blood sugar and be healthy for, all the things. Our digestive fire, so like your stomach acid production, that is limited and dictated by the amount of bile and how freely it flows. Now, what we need to understand is, so bile, and that's stomach acid produced in the stomach. Bile is produced in the liver, stored in the gallbladder. Just some basic, get us anchored of where we're at in the body. What most people don't realize, and your doctor might not even know this, bile is also our body's detox pathway for fat-soluble toxins. So those include things like heavy metals, but those also include hormones. So our natural, and people think about like xenoestrogens, and yes, those are part of it, but just the hormones that your body produces every single day, from sex hormones to cortisol, like all the hormones that our body needs to produce.
Yeah.
So if that pathway is already not functioning at peak capacity, which I can pretty much guarantee that it's not, a quick test that you can do is if you look at your arm right here and you have those little bumps, that's called keratosis, keratosis pilaris, or if you look,
yes, I have it.
The strawberry skin.
Yes.
That means that your bile is not flowing well because you're not breaking down your fat soluble vitamins, and you probably have a fat soluble vitamin deficiency. So that's your test. I used to have that. I tried all the creams, all the things.
Yes. There's so many, like the oatmeal baths, all of it. You're like, okay.
I now have beautiful smooth arms because I know how to support my digestion, which that's great in and of itself, but that's just a topical thing that shows that my body's actually functioning well. But that's almost everyone is dealing with this. And so we need to get that bile flowing again. And there's there's a variety of things that go into that. There's some nutrient deficiencies that can lead to that. There's actually, things like castor oil packs can be really helpful. Sometimes, like there's physical blockages in the bile ducts that, you need to do a bit deeper work to address. But that is a big reason why you're feeling sick. And you're like, okay, but why does that lead me to feel sick? The second thing we need to understand is that the biggest stressor, the biggest toxin that your body is dealing with isn't, probably tap water, but second to that, is undigested food. So even the cleanest, greenest, most organic, healthiest possible meal you can make, if it is not being digested well, it is going to turn into something that is super toxic for your system. Because when food does not get digested, it rancidifies, it putrefies, it basically rots in your gut, and it feeds dysbiosis. And so for the body, when that bile is trying to break down all those pregnancy hormones, and it can't, right? Because it doesn't have the nutrients it needs. There's a backlog of toxicity. It just doesn't have that ability. That also turns down your body's, you lose stomach acid capacity and you lose fat digestion capacity because it's an organ that's doing two things at once. Your bile's digesting your fats for you. It's allowing you to produce more stomach acid because if you don't have bile, you can't neutralize your stomach acid. So your stomach will turn down its stomach acid production, and it's eliminating these toxins. And so when the toxin gets overburdened, your digestion slows down. And so even though you really do need those nutrients during your first trimester, you don't have the capacity to digest them. And so your innate intelligence is telling you, do not feed me. Do
Yeah.
not give me foods, or only give me things that don't require stomach acid and bile to digest, which are those simple carbohydrates that a lot of women, it's like, all I can eat are the saltine crackers, or all I can eat is a banana, right? It's because you don't need stomach acid or bile to digest those things. But then there's the other driver of morning sickness. And this is where it becomes like a self-fulfilling negative feedback loop, which is why preparing and getting ahead of it can be so, so, so helpful. Because, okay, now I can't eat proteins and fats. Now all I'm eating is simple carbohydrates. Now my blood sugar is dysregulated. And typically those blood sugar dips is what triggers nausea and vomiting.
Nausea. Yep.
There's the food aversion aspect, and then there's the nausea and vomiting. And there's kind of multiple systems going on. But
it makes total sense. Sorry. I could too, but I have to ask you. So when I'm thinking about rancid, putrefied food in the gut, in the colon, a sluggish, slow digestive system, my mind goes to, and when we're talking about liver detoxification, my mind goes to things like enemas and colonics. Is that helpful in this situation?
So here's the thing. This brings us back to like pregnancy prep. So if we're talking about morning, I would not tell someone, oh, you have morning sickness, do a coffee enema.
Right. When you're pregnant, throw some caffeine up there. Yeah.
Here's the thing. We actually have to be very mindful and careful. Like, we want to get the system working before we get pregnant.
Right.
Because again, if it's sluggish, it's because there's a backlog of toxicity. And so the solution is to get that toxicity moved, cleared out, so the system can work better.
Yeah.
But we don't really want to start messing around with toxicity that the body's stored away when we've got a really, really tiny baby that's developing and multiplying. It's growing and developing at a really rapid rate. That is the time in life where it's the most sensitive.
Vulnerable. Yes.
Yeah, it's the most vulnerable because it's so small. And any error that happens when it's super small, that's what's going to be amplified.
What about ahead of pregnancy though?
Yeah. So that is a big, depending on where people want to go, but a big part of my journey is using some of these, and the method I call it deeper detox, but some of these more, I'm looking for the right word, but tools like, I love coffee enemas, colonics are huge, different kinds of flushes and detoxes to help you actually move the physical blockages. Because the reality is there can be physical blockages in the liver, blockages is probably not, it's not fully, but impacting your ability for the bile to flow and for nutrients to be absorbed through your small intestine and the colon. And so that really, that's made a huge difference in my life. Me too. And so that is a really beneficial tool. Now, we also have to understand when it comes to detox, we also need those foundations in place. Because if you don't have the right foundations, just like tossing a coffee enema on things probably isn't going to solve your problems.
And painful. Yeah.
Well, they shouldn't be painful.
But don't you think if you have a ton of backed up waste and you've been eating like standard American diet for a long time, enemas and colonics could be painful? Or no?
So that wouldn't be the time
to do it anyway.
That's probably not the time to dive into a coffee enema journey to start. There's a journey. We need to clean up the diet. Like if we're constantly pouring new toxicity in.
Yes.
It's kind of, but what really, who this is in terms of how I operate my practice, who I think these tools are for, it's for the woman that has been eating well and the woman that has been taking the supplements and the woman that has been taking care of her body, but she feels like the results that she's getting aren't matching her level of input. Yeah. And the reality is it's because there's she's carrying around all this weight, all this backlog. And so once you finally let that go, then you'll finally feel like the person that instead of I'm the healthiest person I know, but I'm also the sickest, you're like, I'm the healthiest, vibrant, most vital person that I know. And it's not just like, that's what I'm doing looks like. It's like, that's also what I'm feeling looks like. Because I see a lot of women, it's like, I eat 5 foods and super strict and all these things. And I have this 10 long list of chronic conditions. And I've been there. I'm saying this because I've been there.
Me too.
And if what you're doing is working, if you found the right approach for you, you should have a certain level of food freedom and
Mm,
you should feel good in your body and you should feel
amen.
energized. Like that
Yep.
means that you've found the approach that's working. If you are super restricted and and super scared of being of a flare or getting exposed to this one thing, and it's getting, if I go in a moldy room, that's going to be it for me. It means you haven't found your real solution. I really want to
Absolutely.
encourage women there because it really is meant to probably be a lot easier than what you're doing right now. And this is the woman I described who's doing all the things, done been through the rabbit hole, done the labs. That's the woman I'm speaking to here. There's another woman, right, where it's like we haven't really put much thought into this yet, or we,
Yeah.
don't know, like basics of macronutrient balance or bringing whole foods into the diet. Like there's a huge space there as well. But to kind of bring it back full circle, most of us have extremely sluggish liver and bile pathways. And it impacts our ability to break down and absorb nutrients from our food. And it also impacts our ability to eliminate toxins that we're exposed to in the environment, but also equally, which is just as toxic, which most people don't think about, the own breakdowns of our innate metabolic processes. So every time you get your period, you make estrogen and then it goes down, and then you make progesterone and then it goes down. Those have to be broken down and eliminated. Each cycle you make new hormones, they're supposed to be broken down, eliminated. Next cycle you make new hormones. What happens for most women is we're making estrogen, doesn't actually leave the body.
There's no dump. Yep.
It doesn't get metabolized properly, and so it's still there. And then we make more estrogen, and then we make more estrogen. And as life goes on, the estrogen load gets higher and higher and higher. And then our egg quality gets compromised, and our corpus luteum isn't as healthy. And now we're not producing as much progesterone, and then the balance gets more and more off. And that's the trajectory that a lot of people get on. And that will, if you're entering pregnancy in that state as well, that can also make morning sickness worse.
Makes complete sense. Yeah. What do you think about, since we just mentioned coffee enemas, what do you think about coffee and caffeine in general and how that impacts a baby ready body?
So what I would say, it's less about because there's evidence both ways. There's benefits to coffee and caffeine,
Sure.
and there's, it's honest, it's the primary antioxidant source in the standard American diet, actually.
Wild. Yeah.
So there's benefits. I've never been a coffee drinker. So, but what I see is we have to look at, okay, how are we using this tool? If you're someone that you cannot function, like you don't have energy until you get your morning coffee, that is much more concerning to me in terms of pregnancy preparedness and baby readiness than if you're drinking coffee or not. Because what that's telling me is that your system, your adrenal system, is like, we're done, we're out.
Yep.
Like we don't want to make energy for you. You don't have it. And what you're saying is like, you're annoying. I don't want to listen to you. I've got stuff to do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give myself the energy and I'll deal with you tomorrow. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's really more where I have a concern. I'm not, a cup of coffee, it tastes good. You're at a cute coffee shop and you have it,
Sure.
maybe not in the plastic cup. And, but because we all know, I hope we all know this, right? Like a to-go cup, even though the outside is paper, the inside is plastic.
Plastic. Yeah. Microplastic central.
Like pouring boiling water into a plastic bag. Like we all use them on occasion. I don't stress it, but maybe not every day. But what I would say is that's more where I'm concerned, because it's a sign that our adrenals, we're going to talk about adrenals a little bit and baby readiness. This relates to morning sickness as well, which is that first trimester fatigue. And this is usually both adrenal and thyroid hormone related. And so, because basically when baby is small, like 0 to 20 weeks, baby has to pull from mom's thyroid and adrenal hormone production. Starting at 20 weeks, it's kind of crazy. Babies have adult size adrenal glands.
What? At 20 weeks?
Baby, like we're just born. It's like
Wild.
practically adult size. Like they just, Anyway, so what happens is that, and this is why if for pregnant women listening or women that know pregnant women, usually 20 weeks is like when you turn the corner and you're like, I have energy again. I feel good. Yeah. And why that's happening, it's never supposed to go away, right? An afternoon nap, maybe, or an earlier bedtime, that makes sense. Your body's doing a lot, but not all day fatigue and like feeling like you're not yourself. That's not really, that means that your body's struggling to make enough hormones to run your system and run baby's system. And it was designed to have capacity to do both. Right. Yeah. And so, but why do we suddenly feel better at 20 weeks? Because like baby's actually bigger and you're like kind of doing more in a certain sense. I mean, you grow the placenta in the first trimester, so that is a lot, but it's because at 20 weeks, baby's adrenals come online. And they start producing adrenal hormones. And so what mom can actually do in adrenal deficient state is she's going to actually start stealing adrenal hormones from baby. And what does this look like when you bring it? So she feels better. Baby is slowly becoming depleted. And what you get is a baby that's born in an adrenal deficient state. So let's talk about some symptoms of being adrenal, like when our adrenals are depleted. I'm using kind of simplistic terms. It's an HPA axis, but we're just adrenals depleted just for simplicity. Yep. It looks like being wired and tired. Who can relate to that? Where it's like you're tired, but you're like
you like can't fall asleep. Yes.
So what if when we think about postpartum, so when you ask me about coffee and I'm jumping to coffee and pregnancy, I'm just jumping to postpartum and you're like, what?
I love it. No, I love it.
We steal adrenal hormones from baby. Baby is born in an adrenal deficient state. Now you're postpartum. It's like midnight, baby's partying, you're exhausted, and you're like, what's wrong with this baby? Like, why won't it sleep? And what I need you to understand is that you set the stage for those circumstances, right? Yeah. Like not intentionally, there's no blame, but just like,
of course.
Like, because common vernacular is like, you start blaming your baby. You say, he's a bad sleeper. I mean, you could
colicky. Yeah.
And he might, his tummy might be hurting, but a lot of times what I see is these babies, they are wired and tired because they were born in an adrenal deficient state because mom's body did not have the adrenal capacity to go through pregnancy. And she started taking from baby once their adrenals came online. And so bringing it back to coffee, it's less about, okay, yes, we don't want to do more than a certain number, like 1 or 2 cups a day. There is too much caffeine is not good for pregnancy, but I'm really thinking about, okay, why is this caffeine being used as a tool? And what is it indicating about mom's energy balance overall? And pretty much every single woman, if it's I wake up and I don't have energy till I have my cup of coffee, that's a problem. That's a problem. That's something that really needs to be looked at because it will have these downstream impacts.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. Okay, I have one more question for you and then I will let you go, but this is a big one. What's the deal with prenatals? Do we need to be taking prenatals if we have a baby-ready body? Do we need to be, some of these supplements, it's like 8 to 12 pills a day and in really high amounts of all these vitamins and minerals. What's your take on prenatals?
And it's an excellent question because, right, if you Google how to prepare for pregnancy, what is like the thing to do?
Take a prenatal, close your eyes, have sex when you're ovulating, you'll be fine,
So I've done entire podcast episodes just on prenatals because there's a lot there. But what I would say is, one, you have to understand, okay, what actually would a diet look like so I can get all the nutrients I need to have a healthy pregnancy from food? And the reality is, I don't even get that done every single day. And I say that because, this is my profession and I know exactly what this looks like. And I've been spending, I have all the cooking skills and, it's not always easy, especially when you think about, I think folate is the nutrient I would put extra attention to just because it's not shelf stable. So if you're getting, if you have a garden in your backyard and you pick a head of romaine lettuce, it's going to have significant, like up to 10 times more the amount of folate than the organic romaine lettuce that you picked up at Whole Foods. There's been a significant amount of nutrient loss from when that was picked to stored, to shipped, to put on the shelf, to put in your fridge and forgotten about for a week.
Yeah. Wow. That's so interesting.
So that is one specific, and that is the nutrient that gets a lot of focus when it comes to preconception, because it is really important. And when it's most important are in those first few weeks of pregnancy, often before a woman actually knows that she's pregnant, it's a maybe, it's not confirmed. And so, I mean, that is kind of like the motivation behind where we got prenatals from. Now, there is a whole discussion about what, if we are going to take a prenatal, what form of nutrient do we need? And so I think my philosophy is it's best to get the nutrients straight from food, because I have seen there are potential risks even from a high quality, like some of the brands that I use during my own pregnancies and I recommend to my clients. They're not a perfect solution. I do think the perfect solution is food, but then we also have to acknowledge, okay, what is going to be the best solution for my life, and what am I actually realistically going to be able to do? Like, do I have a farm in my backyard, or am I going to go to the farmer's market every weekend? Or it's just thinking about what do I have access to in my life and what can I realistically bring on, which is why for the majority of the women that I work with, I do recommend prenatals. And then if you're saying, okay, we are going to do a prenatal, we do want to supplement, what is going to be the best forms of these different nutrients? What do we want to supplement? And just to kind of shoot back full picture, after doing like a lot of the detox work that I've done and doing it with my clients and seeing what comes out of women's digestive systems and understanding how blocked they are, how many pathogens are in there, it actually makes sense why we would need significantly more than the RDA to get sufficient nutrients on board.
Sure.
So I would say too, longest term solution, we get rid of that backlog. We get rid of that toxicity. We get the digestive tract back online so we can actually have good nutrient levels kind of from food alone or from minimal supplementation. But the vast majority of women aren't going to be there. And, if you're here and you want to be pregnant 3 to 6 months from now, probably a prenatal is going to be the most efficient pathway forward for you. And so that's one thing. But then we do have to be really mindful about, okay, what are we taking? Because there are prenatals that are worse than, I have to be careful with how I say this, but there are prenatals with more negative impacts than others. So I would put it this way, and so this kind of brings us to the folic acid conversation.
Sure.
A lot of women's bodies cannot turn, and this is where I go against ACOG, and I'll just be, clear there, because ACOG says that folic acid is the only known form of folate to protect neural tube defects, and the only form they'll recommend, and it's fine for people with MTHFR. And, this is my main point of contention with OBGYNs, because I've seen evidence that folic acid for certain women significantly increases their risk of miscarriage. And I can understand the mechanism that would make sense with the unmetabolized folic acid. Absolutely. And I've seen it, there's evidence where it's increasing their adverse pregnancy outcomes. So
postpartum depression. Yeah.
No, and that all gets back to the phases of liver detox. So now I'm like, I want my diagram, but I don't have it. I need to print it out on my wall of just phases of liver detox right here. Yeah. But you need folate to move toxins from phase 1 to phase 2 of liver detox. So when you don't have folate in the diet, and then B vitamins specifically, here's the other thing. There's different kinds there's fat-soluble nutrients, there's water-soluble nutrients. B vitamins are water-soluble nutrients, which means that you have to eat them every single day. And if you ever get cracks in the corner of your mouth, if you ever gotten where you just get little cracks here, that'll happen to me. Something like either you're sick, but it's a B vitamin deficiency. I've seen it like I'm stressed. I'm like, oh, I burned through my B vitamins. Like my mouth's but the point being is that if you're not consuming those every day, you don't have them. You don't have a storage site for them. You can produce some in your gut, but you need to be eating fiber for your gut microbiome to produce those for you. So you need those coming in every single day. And if you are taking folic acid and your body has a hard time with it's like a 7-step conjugation process to turn folic acid into the active form. If it's not doing that well, you're going to have a lot of unmetabolized folic acid floating around, and that can actually block the folate receptor sites on your cells. And so basically that goes beyond like, okay, I don't have folate, but I also don't have the nutrient I need to go through this phase 1 to phase 2 of liver detox, which means I also have all these extra toxins floating around. And so what can happen to babies if we think about, okay, let me put myself in baby shoes. Maybe I'm a little baby and I have some MTHFR because it's, and if you are a sensitive girly, you probably have MTHFR. Like you don't even need to it's just, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you're not a sensitive girly.
Yeah.
You'd just be living your life, having fun.
Yep. Not caring about any of this. Like you're like, I'm good.
Yeah. Right. So we need to pay attention to this because if you're already here, it's because your body has a harder time eliminating these toxins or dealing with this stuff. But I'm bringing us to little baby. And so not only does little baby not have the folate that they need, but now they have all this extra toxicity that's flowing around because our liver's not going through the phases of liver detox. And we can just imagine some of the impacts that can have on baby that's developing. So when we get, full circle, what I have seen in my practice and between my 2 different pregnancy experiences is that my clients and myself especially, I was much better off when I was, I don't want to say over supplementing, but intensely supplementing with high quality bioavailable nutrients, as opposed to trying to take as little as possible and not, I don't want it to be synthetic at all. So I'm going to use this like Garden of Life food. It's like a food-based prenatal.
I know.
Perfect, but it's like, no, it's actually not bioavailable. So you're not getting anything, so that is kind of where I am when it comes to prenatals. And I've seen it I see my clients do very well. One thing should we go there? We're going to go there.
Yeah, go there.
Because I think it's worth discussing. I do think, tongue ties, right? We're going to talk about tongue ties.
We have to.
They're everywhere. So I still see a lot of tongue ties in my practice. And so I don't feel like I'm like, I have the solution to tongue ties. Like I'm seeing them a lot. And I do think EMFs play a role, EMF exposure. I think that's one route that has led to an increase of tongue ties. The second thing I do think is that when we supplement, even with folic acid for sure, can be a significant contributor. I don't have just from anecdotal and what I've observed.
Sure.
But what I would say is that I do think there's a place where methylated folate as well can potentially contribute to so it's like you have the gene, but maybe is the tongue tie more or less severe? I think there's a pathway where higher doses of methylated folate could also be contributing to tongue ties. Now, where I'm at with the practice, I still see the benefits. Like, it's like, we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I still think we want to have these prenatals, but let me explain the circumstances under which I see that contributing. And it's when that phase 3 of liver detox isn't open. And so something I talk about, when the way that my Baby Ready process is designed is that everybody's working on, and that phase 3 of liver detox is your bile flow. So we're thinking about this, and that's why I'm like, if you find out you're pregnant today, take the supplement framework, but there are some potential, like you might start moving some backlog of like there's things we don't know could be happening.
Sure.
It's still going to be in, to the best of my knowledge and to what I see, like we want you to have those nutrients. But the point I want to make is that when phase 3 is in flowing, so we got phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 of liver detox. When we go through phase 1, we take fat soluble toxins and we turn them into water soluble toxins. And then they get turned back basically into fat soluble toxins again and eliminated. So when you take a prenatal, you're getting in a lot of things that push toxins from phase 1, through phase 1 to phase 2. A lot of people get stuck between phase 2 and phase 3. And so we have to and phase 2 is dependent on like amino acids and a lot of things. So you really need everything in place for things to work well. And so when it comes to, because I know there's going to be people on here, if you have been on Instagram long enough, you're going to see things like methylated folate. That also causes tongue ties too. And what I want us to see is that when that's happening, it's usually because phase 3 isn't working very well, because then we're having everything get pushed through phase 1 and you can get what are called reactive oxidative intermediates. It's actually not great when things go through phase 1, but they don't go all the way through phase 2 and phase 3 and get out of your body. So I know a bit in depth, but I think it's worth discussing and giving like some context there that there is no perfect tool. Like the best tool is food, you know, and there's also no perfect food. Like some foods have naturally occurring heavy metals and things like oxalates and lectins. And, you know, there's no one perfect solution. So it's just looking at the tools and saying, okay, how can I use this tool? Like, because there's some really good, efficient tools, but sometimes you're like, okay, maybe I need safety goggles, or I'm bringing it like to the actual, if we're in the garage, like, I don't know the names of tools.
No.
Yeah.
But I think what you're saying, I mean, it all makes sense because there's also a level of bioindividuality between all of us, right? So like your perfect plan could not be my perfect plan. And so I think it comes down to finding out where you're at and then doing what applies to you best. I know people are going to ask, what prenatal do you recommend specifically to your clients?
So there's a few brands that I like. Seeking Health is my favorite. Needed is a really great brand. Fullwell is another great brand.
Yeah.
There's some, you know, there's no perfect brand. But I have a mini course that's called More Than a Prenatal. And I compare all the top brands on the market and I go through, okay, here's what's in them. Here's the comparison. There's some brands I really don't like. And that's a really good, women love that course because it just really helps you of like, okay, what do I actually buy? Because often like you're paying close to the same price for like a much inferior product.
Yes.
And there is a lot of, I really lean towards, I like professional grade supplement brands. And so as a practitioner, those are things that I can, you know, recommend to my clients. You usually don't find them at, you know, Sprouts or Whole Foods or directly online. You usually have to purchase through a practitioner. And the reason I like those brands is that instead of investing into marketing, they're investing into the quality of their product and then educate, you know, some amount of educating practitioners about how to best use their products.
Yeah.
So those are the brands I tend to see the best results with. And I just like that. So if you're seeing an Instagram ad for the prenatal, does it mean it's bad? No, but there might be another brand out there that makes more sense. And I think Seeking Health does do a few. They do sell direct to consumer as well. But that's something I look at when it comes to supplement brands. So that's really, and I also do teach all of my clients how to self-muscle test and how to see, okay, what is my body responding to best? Because as you said, at the end of the day, I can know what the best brands generally are on the market, what the best nutrients are generally, what I've seen work well for the biggest number of clients, but I can't actually know what's going to be the best thing for you. But you can know, and your body knows, and your innate intelligence, when properly trained, can show you what is going to be the best thing for you.
Oh, I love that. Okay, Alexandra, tell people where they can find you. Are you currently accepting new clients? How do they get a hold of the Baby Ready Body Method?
Yes, yes. So they can find me at Alexandra Radway or Holistic Pregnancy Prep on Instagram. Right now, I am taking new clients into my coaching program.
Amazing.
And I also have a membership where you can access the Baby Ready Body Method. It is on hold for some projects that are coming out in the new year. And
Yay.
there's also a Baby Ready Body book coming in 2026.
Exciting. That's huge.
Exciting. So I'll probably get a link for your listeners to get on like the pre-sale for that.
Yes.
But that is where you can find me. I also have my prenatals course you can start right now. I love that's such a great place to start because it just feels good to have like that's something you can get done like literally like an hour through the course, within 2-3 days, they're at your door. And then you're just like, okay, I know I've got a baseline of preparedness. So I love getting that done super fast for women. But yeah, this has been a pleasure.
Oh, likewise. You are such a wealth of knowledge. I know that people are going to get so much value from this episode. And honestly, we might need to do a part 2 just talking about the phases of liver detox because it's such a fascinating conversation.
We could talk about drainage pathways.
I know.
So many cool things. That's the whole like, if I wasn't doing pregnancy prep, I would just be like straight doing detox work and we might get there someday. But if you are going to, here's the thing. It's like, if you are going to do detox at any point in your life, the best time is before you have your babies, because whatever you don't detox, you're going to pass on down. Like we talk about, I want to break like generational, patterns and stuff. Like that is such a huge one. And it's one of those things, like once you understand it, you're like, oh wait, like now the body makes sense. Like everything's making sense. So, but I thank you so much again. And, I also want to share, like, we get into the minutia and the details and all those, and I love it because I love the body. I love understanding how it works. But for the woman listening, I really want her to hear the things that can have like some of the things that can have the biggest impact on your fertility, on your pregnancy, on your family's future are very inexpensive and very realistic and easy to implement. And you just need to know where those leverage points are. And that's often what women are missing. So I really just want to encourage the women, just encourage you, because I think there's so much noise out there that there's really simple things you can focus on that will have a big impact.
Amen. I love it. Thank you so much. I will talk to you soon. I hope this was valuable for everyone, and we'll see you again next week.